Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and we have got another edition of This Week in SEC Basketball right before the Saturday of February 21st. The conference race is coming to a close. It's not that close at the top, but it's pretty close in the middle. But we've just got 5 games left for each team. But before we move on to the previews, let's recap what happened this week in the SEC. Going chronologically here, the Florida Gators did horrible things in South Carolina. And that wasn't really. Well, actually, let me take that back. It wasn't as bad as many people thought it was going to be. I mean, the line for this game was like 23, ended up just being a 14-point gap. Carolina, excuse me, all things considered, they played pretty well. Meechie Johnson did have 22. And for Florida, their three-point shooting wasn't quite there the same way. But, I mean, Ruben Chinyelu had 15 points and 17 boards. Alex Condon had 20 points and 10 boards. Like, the bigs just absolutely dominated on a Carolina team that just really couldn't compete with them. So the Gators, they have a very strong lead in the SEC. A part of that is because of what happened in Bama, Arkansas, which we'll get to that in a few minutes here. But the Gators have a 2-game flat lead over Alabama, who's currently second. They have that tiebreaker. They play Arkansas next Saturday. The Gators seem to be separating themselves a good bit in the SEC here, but there are, 8 teams that are within a game of each other. Bama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas, Vandy, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. Yep, sorry. All those schools are within 1 game of each other, so we'll break that down later in the week. But the SEC race overall is getting pretty tight in the middle. Florida is pulling away, though, and they add another win to their resume. Probably the not the best game, but the most surprising result here was when Georgia went to Rupp on Tuesday and took down Kentucky 86-78. Blue Kane gave him 20. Jeremiah Wilkinson was back for the Dogs, gave him 19. Otega Owe did all he could. He had 28 points for Kentucky. And watching this game, like, Georgia really tried to give it away. Mike White was doing Mike White things. They only made 1 field goal in the last 4.5 minutes of that game, and it was a Santos surreal and one where he missed the free throw after that. Like, Georgia tried to give it away. Kentucky just couldn't go take it. I think that part of this is because, Kentucky's coming off that emotional loss against Florida last Saturday. I think the Gators kind of beat them twice because it was a mental toll losing that game, also a physical toll playing Florida. So I think Kentucky just kind of got beat twice, and this doesn't really change my outlook on the Wildcats because they were always a good team that I thought had the ceiling to make the Elite Eight. Right, if those guys are clicking, if Chandler's making threes, if always getting what he wants off the dribble, things like that, they still have that potential. But it is definitely a bit of a reality check, sort of sombering loss for Kentucky to lose to this Georgia team in your home building. But for Georgia, I had written them off. I thought they were not going to make the tournament. I thought they were going to get their bubble burst, keep losing games. Massive win. Just a huge win for the Bulldogs and Mike White. They're still at a 10-seed projection as of this morning, but it's a much safer 10 seed, than it was after last weekend. So Georgia with a big-time win for their tournament resume. Kentucky will be fine. They obviously wanted that game, for the SEC race, but they will be okay. They'll still, I think they're a 6 seed right now. Kentucky just to bounce back this weekend. Moving on, this game was scary. Texas versus LSU. The Longhorns only held on by 3 points, 88-85, in large part because LSU put up 52 points in the second half. They shot north of 60% over the last 20 minutes. McKinnon gave them 27. The Tigers, they're 14-12 overall, 2-11 in the SEC. You wouldn't have guessed that watching this effort by them, right? Because Texas is on the bubble. Like, now they're a little bit safer, but the Longhorns really are playing for something. This was not a game they could afford to lose. And LSU was playing for nothing. But they came out, it was, first half, it was at halftime, they're now at 15, but they came out of the locker room and put on a show, scoring 52 points in the second half, but Texas was able to prevail. Dalen Swain led them with 21 points and 10 boards, a double-double for him. So the Longhorns, they're now a 9-seed projection. I tweeted it out yesterday, I think. They are the most dangerous bubble team to me. I'm not sure you can really call them a bubble team now, I guess, but they're definitely going to be one of those lower seeds. Horns can play with and beat anybody in the SEC in a 40-minute window. They can. This team is scary. They obviously have some holes. There's a reason why they've lost 5 SEC games now overall. But Texas is dangerous. And LSU, they clearly proved that they can kind of play spoiler coming down the line here. If you can compete with a team like Texas, who obviously isn't the top of the conference, but they get Alabama in Baton Rouge. They go to Ole Miss. They get Oklahoma. They go to Auburn. They get A&M. So, you're looking at Bama, Auburn, and A&M there as tournament teams out of the SEC. Auburn and A&M, Auburn more so a little bit, are bubble teams. So if LSU can, be competing with a team like Texas, they can compete with Auburn and A&M too. Tigers could maybe play a little bit of spoiler here down the stretch. We'll see how it goes with LSU. But now moving on to Wednesday's games, starting off with one that I wrote off, almost was the greatest finish in the sport, maybe ever, aside from Villanova in the national championship. But Missouri and Vanderbilt. Missouri had to hang on to win this game, only 81-80. Vandy was down by as much as I don't know exactly, but it was a lot. And if you watch the end of this game, I mean, Vandy's down by 4 with 7 seconds left. They fly down. Tyler Nickel hits a 3. It's a 1-point game with 1.5 seconds left. Missouri just has to, pretty much inbound the ball. They throw it to half court. Tyler Tanner picks it off, puts up a half court shot in like one motion. It's incredible the motion he had to catch this and throw it up. I mean, the thing was halfway down and it rolled out. So that doesn't really matter how it went down. What matters is that Missouri got a win over a ranked Vanderbilt team on their home floor. It's massive for Dennis Gates and the Tigers. After they lost that game against Texas at home in sort of the bubble war, they get this win against a ranked Vandy team. It's massive for their resume. And for the Commodores, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, obviously you wanted this game. You're trying to get one of those top 4 seeds. But, you got 27 more from Tyler Tanner. Tyler Nickel was shooting the ball well. You scored 50 points in the second half. Like, you had a good offensive game, at least for the final 20 minutes. Vandy is sort of in this middle ground where they don't need to win games, but they really should not be losing some of these games. Like, they shouldn't have lost to Missouri. They should not have lost to Oklahoma last weekend. Their tournament is going to be fine. They'll still be a top 6 seed regardless, but you would like to see them playing their best ball going into Nashville and going into the tournament. They're not right now, but they get 2 shots against Tennessee down the stretch here. They go to Kentucky, they get Georgia at home, and they go to Ole Miss. Those are their final 5 games. So they've got some room here to get hot, and get in a rhythm. So Vandy, I'm not worried about them. How they're currently presented, they should be a very solid 5-ish seed in the tournament. But Missouri, massive win for them to try and get to the big dance after losing that game against Texas. Okay, let's go ahead to the game of the year. I made a video about this game on TikTok, and I got a little bit of pushback about why this wasn't game of the year because there wasn't a bunch of defense being played. Shut up. First of all, this game was 117 to 115. I don't care that it was higher scoring than Houston, Iowa State. That was also close. This was the game of the year. Darius Acuff scored 49 points. LeBaron Philon had 35 and 7. This was the game of the year. Arkansas was up by 10 at half. Bama was able to rally back before his overtime. And then we got a 2 overtime thriller between 2 of the most exciting teams in the conference, I'm willing to say. And it was almost third if that putback dunk goes down. But I mean, I don't really have the ability to talk about this game in just 2 minutes. Whereas, I mean, we'll just go implications-wise. Bama, this was a big win for them. Improved 9-4 in the SEC. Jump ahead here of Arkansas in the conference standings with that tiebreaker now. Because these teams are, I talk about how many teams are within 1 game of each other in second and third place effectively. Those top 4 seeds are very valuable in Nashville. To get that double bye, not have to play until Friday, I think. Yeah, not until Friday. So that's obviously a massive win for that, but just a big win for Nate Oates and Bama because now they've won 5 straight coming off that Florida loss. They're really rounding into form. They're shooting better. They didn't even shoot that well in this game, truthfully, but they're starting to find more ways to score that's not just totally reliant on the 3. And for Arkansas, man, I mean, Darius Acuff, that's it. That's the end of that sentence. Darius Acuff, man, 49 points as a true freshman at Alabama is just unbelievable. But this stopped a 3-game winning streak for him. In Arkansas now. They get Missouri on Saturday, and then you do kind of have that showdown in Gainesville next Saturday, February 28th. You cannot be looking ahead to that because you have Missouri this Saturday. They get A&M in the midweek next week. That's a tricky game too. So they get 2 games here as Arkansas against tournament teams, both at home. Then they go to Gainesville. Then they get Texas at home, tournament team, and they go to Missouri. So Arkansas has 5 games against tournament teams left on their schedule. They can't fall asleep. Because right now, like I said, they're tied for second in the SEC effectively, but they don't have the tiebreaker over Alabama. They could easily, if they're not ready for all these games, close 2-3 and end up 11-7 in conference and, be playing early on Wednesday. No, sorry, on Thursday. I get the days mixed up on the national tournament. I'm sorry. But Arkansas, I mean, this team is really, really good. Their depth is a bit of a problem, and that was obviously made a bigger issue when they had 4 guys foul out in this game. But Arkansas is incredibly dangerous. They're incredibly fun to watch. Most of it's because of Darius Aiko, but also guys like Billy Richmond. But they can't fall asleep. They cannot hang their heads with how heartbreaking this loss was because they have 5 hard games coming up. Moving on now, Ole Miss and Texas A&M. This will be a little bit of a quicker recap here. But A&M held on to win by 3 after Ole Miss had the lead in that second half. Agee had 17 points and 10 rebounds for the Aggies. Ole Miss, their leader was Malik Dia with 20 points. But A&M, they've been kind of struggling a little bit. They needed this win. It was going to be a brutal loss if they lost this game to a really, I don't want to say really bad, a heavily struggling Ole Miss team at home when you really need wins because A&M's tournament status is no longer a lock. They went from playing with Florida for the lead in the SEC outright to now 8 seed, 9 seed, I believe is what they were this morning. So it was more of a big not loss for A&M than it was an important win. But they got it done, and Ole Miss is just struggling, man. They're 3-10 in conference. But the Aggies survive, and they will keep moving on here. And then Tennessee versus Oklahoma. This game went, not surprisingly. I do like Oklahoma as a sneaky upset spot. Not necessarily in Knoxville. 89-66 for the Vols. Nate Ament gave him 29 points. And for Oklahoma, the veteran guy, Nigel Pack, he led them with 20 points. But the Vols, they're just sneaking around. They're 9-4 in the SEC, but they're not a ranked team. Like this Tennessee team is unranked, which is foreign to begin with. But then you look at the fact that they're 9-4 in conference. They have some good wins. They also have some not great losses, obviously. But Tennessee is really dangerous. I mean, with Amen and Gillespie, if both those guys are on, that's a 55, 60-point duo in a game. That can beat anybody. So if the Vols are able to hit their stride later, they can be really dangerous in the SEC tournament and in the March Madness. And then the final game of the midweek was Mississippi State hosting Auburn. This one was a lot of fun. This one was a ton of fun. You had Mississippi State winning this game 91-85, despite Auburn putting up 52 points in the second half. We have a bunch of 50-point halves in half two this week. Auburn, man, this is getting scary. This is getting really close. I mean, they're now 14-12 overall. They are 5-8, I believe, in the SEC. Yeah, they're 5-8 in the SEC. All you're really looking at with their resume, I mean, they have wins over Arkansas. They have wins at Florida. That's the kind. I mean, do you have a win over St. John's and a close loss to Houston? So I mean, it's close, it's fine. But you've lost 5 straight games, and it is worth noting. Like, you have to kind of battle the recency bias of this team being cold because, like I said, they have wins over Arkansas and Florida. They beat St. John's. They almost got Houston, but losing 5 straight is losing 5 straight. They're on the bubble. This Auburn team is on the bubble. They have got to figure it out. They get Kentucky at home on Saturday at night. They are favored in that game. If the Jungle doesn't get up and Auburn doesn't get up and win them that game, they're going to miss the tournament. Because the rest of their schedule, they play Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and LSU. None of those wins are going to mean anything. And then they go to Alabama to end the year. So maybe they do get revenge on the Crimson Tide. But my question is, if you lose this game to Kentucky, which would then be 6 straight losses, even if you do go 3-0 over those next 3, does a Bama win get you anything? And then with, maybe if you're a little lackluster going into the SEC tournament, can they turn around and have a good week there? It's scary for Stephen Pearl and the Tigers, man, but they have got to string wins together. But about Mississippi State just a little bit, I mean, Josh Hubbard had 46 points. This guy's on an absolute ripper. Recently, look at his game log. So he had 46 against Auburn, 32 against Ole Miss. He had 31 against Tennessee in that losing effort. I mean, I don't know what that average is, but it's a lot. Josh Hubbard is absolutely on fire. This guy's been so fun to watch forever. I just wish that State was doing a little better than they are. So he had a little bit more of that spotlight. Mississippi State gets a big one at home against Auburn. State could easily play spoiler in Nashville too. And most of that is because of Josh Hubbard. If he puts up 46, that keeps you in any game against anybody. So State can be dangerous, but my biggest takeaway from this is, is Auburn going to start winning basketball games again? Because all year it was kind of thought of almost like a given. Like, yeah, Auburn's going to make the tournament. Of course they are. It's Auburn. Bruce Pearl is gone, but look at this roster. They got the Hot Pettiford. We know what Keyshawn Hall can do. Look at these guys. And that's still been kind of the sentiment, but they've got to win. I mean, the last game they won was that game against Texas. What date was that? 1 second. Their last one was January 28th. It's February 20th as I'm recording this. And they play Kentucky tomorrow night. I'm probably going to pick Auburn against Kentucky. I probably will. But if they don't win that game, they're going to be pushing a month without winning a basketball game. And doing that, but in February, is not good for tournament hopes, believe it or not. I've just come to that conclusion myself. But Auburn struggling. They've got to get a win at some point, but Mississippi State, great win at home. So that concludes our This Week in SEC Basketball for this week. I'll be doing previews for this weekend on my TikTok and YouTube shorts. Look there for those. But thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I've been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.